do right here is go back. Way back. Back into time.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Celebrating 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling. This is the ReGeneration Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Sheldon Goldberg, Joe Matarazzo, and Kevin Castro.
Welcome, everyone, and it's time once again for the NECW ReGeneration Podcast, looking back at 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling. I'm Sheldon Goldberg, joined as always by Joe Matarazzo and Kevin Castro. And gentlemen, it's good to have you aboard as always. Joe, how are you?
Very good, very good. Another week of hanging with my buddies and talking what we love.
It's my favorite hour of the week. Kevin, how about
Absolutely.
you?
I am fantastic.
Well, this week on the show, we are going to be talking about two matches from the NECW 20th Anniversary Collection. We're going to go back to September 20th, 2008. We're going to look at the Portuguese Princess Ariel teaming with Australian star Madison Eagles as they take on the team of Lexxus and Jessie McKay, who is now better known to all of you as WWE's Billie Kay. And then from there, we're going to go to November 22nd, 2015, and a tag match between Team C-Stars, taking on the team of Sumi Sakai and Deonna Purrazzo. Something that, if it were happening right now, would be considered a dream match. So we're going to talk about those. We've got some news items to talk about. Before I go any further, and before I forget, I want to send a shout-out to an NECW alumnus who is not doing too well health-wise, Melissa Coates, who was a former world bodybuilding champion. Melissa is having some health issues. She had to have one of her legs amputated below the knee. Melissa Coates, apart from being a world bodybuilding champion, she had been touring around with Sabu as Super Genie. So you may have seen her on the independent circuit. But Melissa is a great girl. She wrestled for us a number of times. She's got a GoFundMe. Maybe I'll put it in the description of this podcast so you can, if you're able to do so, if you can donate to Melissa Coates, that would be great because she's been dealt a bad hand, and those of us who can afford to help out should. It was 21 years ago, this past week, that the Boston bad boy, Tony Rumble, passed away. It was quite a blow.
Hard to believe it's been that long.
Wow. Yeah, that was quite a blow for me personally because he and I were very close friends, but it was quite a blow for wrestling in New England. Tony's Century Wrestling Alliance, which later became NWA New England, well, it actually was the predecessor to New England Championship Wrestling. Tony and I were very close. He was one of a kind, very unique individual. Of course, he's best known to people around the country as being on Mario Savoldi's ICW. The Rumble Seat was his interview segment. And Tony was a real character. One of a kind guy, very street smart, great booker. Maybe at some point in the not too distant future we'll do a show on Tony and have some people on that will share some reminiscences about the late Boston bad boy because he was a great one. Good. He was one of a kind. The matches that we're going to talk about this week lead into a theme that we're going to continue next week as well as this week, and that's the use of international talent in NECW. But before we get to the matches, just a little background here. One of our hallmarks as a company was the use of international talent. And this was something that we didn't really set out to achieve. It was just something that sort of happened. I mean, we had a lot of buzz on the internet because we were putting shows and matches up on the internet. So a lot of people saw us, not just domestically, but around the world. I had a fair amount of visibility from a couple of projects that I was involved in outside of NECW. The A&E documentary, The Unreal Story of Professional Wrestling, which I appeared on, and the Andre the Giant episode of A&E's Biography, which were both among the highest rated shows that were ever produced on the A&E network. So I had a fair amount of notoriety from those, and people would seek me out, people from all over the world. And we're going to get to some of those matches and some of the people that we had in from overseas in the coming weeks. And I think they really made a difference in NECW. They really set us apart in a lot of ways. We weren't a company that was relying on stars. So we drew our differences with everybody else in different ways. And international talent was one of them. Let me ask you guys what your thoughts are on that subject. Starting with you, Kev.
Well, one of the big things that always jumps out to me is the opportunity not just for the international talents to perform, to come into America, to perform in front of brand new crowds, completely different way of looking at wrestling, all the different areas of the world. And it's also a huge opportunity for the talent to be able to get into the ring with international talents who are trained differently, who work differently, who have a different style. It's just a learning experience for pretty much everybody involved. And looking at it from a worker's perspective, to not only come out of your comfort zone, but to come into a completely different country and get over with the crowd is, how else can you learn that?
Joe, your thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. It's when you bring in that different aspect, that different learning stage. Everybody learns. This is where everybody is honing their craft. NECW is a breeding ground. It always has been, and it's a place where people want to go to get noticed, no matter where you are. And you know what? It brings everybody's levels up because, like we said, when we've been saying, you're only as good as the person that you're working with. And if they're better than you, that's going to make you better. And it makes everybody strive to be that better. And when you can learn from people from other, not only countries, but cultures,
right.
That now makes you more well-rounded. That's why so many of our, the wrestlers in the States want to go to Japan. It's where you learn. It's like a progression step. So it only makes sense for people that want to come here. Where are they going to go? Where's the breeding ground? Where's the first step? And NECW was always it.
Well, you have to remember that when we started in 2000, there was no Ring of Honor. The territories had pretty much died out. So, we were one of the few places that had an open door. We were fortunate enough to have some measure of visibility, so people would get in touch with us. I always had a special place in my heart for people foreign to our country who would just get on a plane and come over here just wanting to live their wrestling dream. If you lived in England or Ireland or Japan or Australia, your options were pretty limited as far as wrestling goes. If you really wanted to make it, you almost had to come to the United States. And just to be able to get a foothold here was a big deal to a lot of folks. Let's take a look at our first match, which is the Portuguese Princess Ariel, who was at the time the Triple W champion, teaming with Madison Eagles as they take on the team of Lexxus and Jessie McKay. The interesting thing, there were a lot of interesting things about this match. First of all, the way it was set up, with the two Australians facing each other on opposite sides. We tended to do that when we could. If the talent came over in pairs, then we would have them face each other since they were already familiar with each other, and they'd be able to showcase their talents to their best advantage. And of course, Ariel, very underrated. She'd wrestled all over the world. She'd wrestled in Mexico. She wrestled in Japan. She was wrestled in Ring of Honor. She held
titles everywhere.
Yes, exactly. So having her in that match was a big deal. Lexus, or Alexis Nevaeh, or Alicia Edwards, whatever you want to call her, she was an up-and-comer. She was really, as I say, we talked about this last week, NECW was the place where she really blossomed. And matches like this were the reason. The quality of opponents that she got to face, and the level of work that she got a chance to do, and the type of platform that she had really helped her blossom as a talent. But let me start with you, Joe. What were your impressions of this particular match?
Okay, so we can start off with Lexus, Alexis, Alicia, whatever you want to call her. Her aggression, again, just like we talked about last week, was off the chart. Totally showing that size does not matter. When she squared off with Madison Eagles and the two of them locked up, you would have thought they were the same size. Madison tried to impose her will, and she was having none of it. And that fiery. It's that little dog in the fight, and she was tenacious, and she carried it very, very well. I love that. Then great showing from the girls from Australia. They did the majority of the work. They really showcased themselves. It was phenomenal. And I'll tell you what, Jessie McKay, Billie Kay, whatever you want to call her, I think she wrestled better then than she is now. She definitely showed a lot more in this match. She should go back and watch this match and remember the things she could do. I mean, the dive to the outside off the ropes, off the turnbuckle. The octopus hold that she put on was absolutely dynamite. How she caught that. She was a lot more crisp. She just seemed, it seems like they've definitely changed her character than what she is, to who she is now. Right. Where she's more of an entertainment value with the Iconics, and now, of course, they broke them up, which was ridiculous.
She had the freedom to do it, though. That's the big thing.
That's it.
The problem is that style doesn't fit into the cookie cutter mold that they have her working now.
You're right. And it's a shame, because out of the two, they usually point to Peyton as being the better worker. I'm going to tell you right now, you watch this match and you'd think differently. I did anyway. And I was around for that. And she worked her ass off to get that win. And Madison Eagles, no slouch. I'm only talking about Billie because of where she is right now. But Madison Eagles, her size, her strength, unmatched. And Ariel is she's just a cornerstone. Right. Then you pepper in Brendan Michael Thomas as some comedy right there, which was, hilarious. But no, dynamite match. Excellent match to watch, and a great showcase for both the Aussies.
Kevin, your impressions.
Well, to piggyback off what Joe was saying, too, about how she did more, Billie Kay did more in this match than she does in WWE. That's why the fans have to expand what they watch. Whether they go back and watch things from the past, whether they get out and see the independent shows, you could be sitting a couple of feet away from the next giant star in wrestling. Right. And to see them as they're coming up. To speak of Ariel, I was around when Ariel first started. I think she was 15 or 16. This young girl that came in, bubbly, stereotypical baby face, girl to put out there. And to see how far she came from that point just to this particular match, going from that bubbly, teeny bopper baby face to just this vicious heel, the way that she was on the crowd, it's entertaining to me because I know her and can see, the evolution of what she became. But I think she should get more credit than she does.
I agree. Definitely underrated. What I was going to say, what I neglected to say earlier, is that Madison Eagles and Jessie McKay were not total strangers to the United States. They had worked extensively in Shimmer, both of them. And Eagles was a multi-time Shimmer champion. So they were trying to make their dreams come true in America. They came out here because, it was an all-women's promotion, which was a rarity, apart from Shimmer, of course. So they wanted to experience being part of World Women's Wrestling. We were the richer for it. I always felt that when you have matches like that on a card, the fans may not realize it, but you're giving them a real treat. You're giving them something really out of the ordinary and really special. I really felt that that was something that paid dividends for us, and not in an obvious way, in a subtle way. Would you agree with that, Kev?
Absolutely. And it is kind of tricky from a fan's perspective because, how many people claim to be from Australia or claim to be, but these are legitimate people who are flying into the country specifically to wrestle. It's not like they're on vacation and they're just, I happen to have some stuff, let me hop in the ring. They purposely came out here to follow their dream, to make themselves better.
When we started the company, the local talent didn't always appreciate the idea that we had all these foreigners coming in. It was the old, that's a spot that could go to a local guy, or that you're taking up a spot for somebody else, or whatever, which is a really narrow way of looking at it. NECW was really interesting in that regard, because you never know who you were going to see. You never knew what was going to be on the car, especially in the early days of the company. You never knew, who was going to show up and what was going to take place. And there's a lot of folks that went on to have huge careers, as you can tell by the videos in this 20th anniversary collection. That if you were a religious NECW fan back then, you got to see a lot of cool stuff. You got to see a lot of cool people before they hit it big. Let's talk about our second match here. Team C-Stars, Delmi Exo and Ashley Vox versus Sumi Sakai and Deonna Purrazzo. Team C-Stars are currently the Shimmer Tag Team Champions. That's a big deal. Ashley Vox was on NWA Power, doing some matches not too long ago. These are local girls who really kind of captured the imagination of the independent scene, and they've done really, really well for themselves. And of course, Sumi Sakai started her journey in American pro wrestling in NECW back in 2002. She literally went right into an NECW ring off the plane, which is a true story.
Wow.
Yeah. Sumi Sakai has an incredible story. She was a star in Japan for a number of years. Prior to pro wrestling, she was Olympic level in judo. In fact, if she brushed her hair back, you'd see she has cauliflower ears.
Wow.
Crazy as that sounds. She was established as a star in Japan. She wanted to come and wrestle in America. And my good friend, Shun Yamaguchi, who is one of the Japanese announcers for WWE, who lives in Arlington, Massachusetts, who at the time was a photographer for Weekly Gong magazine in Japan, but he lived here in the U.S., he was the one that introduced me to her and asked me to book her up and down the East Coast on independent dates. And Shun would come and shoot the shows for Gong, and the publicity would end up in the magazines. So we did a whole program over a championship that was created just for her to bring back to Japan. That's an interesting deal right there. But she teams with Deonna Purrazzo, who was recently, I don't know if she's still the Impact Women's...
She just lost it.
Just lost it, right. And Sumi, of course, became, in recent years, the Women of Honor champion for Ring of Honor. So it's amazing that after all these years in moving to the United States, getting married here, that she would hold a world title in a major American company. This, as I say, if this match were happening, now, it would be considered a dream match. It'd be a huge deal. Whereas when it did happen, yeah, they were both kind of known, but not to the level that they're known now. So Sumi was, to some degree. She was already wrestling in Ring of Honor, but they hadn't started Women of Honor yet. But Kevin, you were there, so let me get your impressions of the match.
All right, before I talk about the match, I just want to tell a quick Sumi story because we had brought her in. I believe we were in Everett. Mm-hmm. She was going to work Mistress Belmont, and we were trying to get promos. We pulled her aside, and we asked her if she wanted to do a promo. She was a little apprehensive, and I told her, I can walk you through it. I can help you along, or if you feel more comfortable, you can do one on your own. So we tried it different ways, and I hope you have this footage somewhere. Mm-hmm. But she did a standalone promo where, just personality-wise, she was mimicking The Rock, and it was one of the most entertaining things I have seen backstage. I mean, it was just amazing. Everything that she was saying, and then, very animated, and then just when she was done, handed the microphone back, thank you, and she just walked away.
Let me tell you, when she first came to the news, she barely spoke English at all.
Wow.
That's true.
She did have an ultimate personality. Yeah. She was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, crazy. She barely spoke English at all. Joe, what were your thoughts when you watched this? Because you weren't there.
Well, Kevin, go. You just give the story. Go ahead and tell your view on the match.
So backstory too, leading up to that. I don't know if I had left the house yet, or if if I was on my way to the building when I found out that I was going to have to ring announce. So now I'm trying to, in my head, schedule how am I going to get all the stuff done plus ring announce. I remember getting there being extremely nervous that I was going to mispronounce Deonna's name. And I remember going over and talking with her, be like, so how do I pronounce it? And, so made sure I had that right. The match itself, I thought it was a very fun match. Mm-hmm. Very entertaining. Hindsight, I almost wish we flipped it so that the Sea Stars were the heels. A little curious to see how that would have played out.
Right.
But ultimately, I thought it was a good match. I thought it was a fun match. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's if that was to go on right now, that's a big money match. It's a dream match.
Joe, what were your thoughts when you watched this?
Well, I wrote down on my notes, and it's written right here. Great ring announcer. But
yes.
I got to put you over, right? Right. It's funny seeing Deonna that early in her career. She was trained by Damian Adams, who I've known Damian for years. Worked with him in the ring 1,000 times as a referee. Sumi, same thing. Referee, I can't tell you how many matches she had. She was always so grateful, always so happy, and afterwards would thank everybody that she worked with, dealt with, talked with. I've just never seen somebody so gracious. And she gets everything that she deserves right now, and good for her. Sea Stars, I didn't have a chance to ever work with them, so this was one of my opportunities to really get to watch them in action. Deonna, boy, she loved that headbutt, didn't she? In the beginning, yeah. She threw that 150 times, and it's funny because technically you could see she wasn't quite there yet where she is now, but boy, she had that it factor. You could tell
absolutely
that was going to catch up. You can't teach it. That the other stuff you can figure out on the way. And you could see it. Sumi, you could tell she totally was the leader of the match. She totally had everything flowing. She's been around forever. And hats off. They did a great job. Again, like you said, Kevin, very fun match. Exciting to watch the girls. They worked their ass off. So I'll tell you, what I did like was the fire on the hot tag. When they made the hot tag, and I don't know which one of the Sea Stars it was that came in. She was throwing elbows, boom, 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 boom. She never tried to do a move. It was old school rock and roll express. Come in, punch, 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 elbow, back fist, and then go into the corner and do something. It reminded me of an old school hot tag. So I was really excited to see that. I love good tag wrestling. So. That was my impression.
Yeah,
and that was the opening match that was the first show when we brought World Women's Wrestling back.
Right.
That was the opening match. So everyone had to follow that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Put you on notice. That's how to do it. Yeah, that was great.
That was an interesting night. I really enjoyed the Sea Stars. I really enjoyed working with them. I thought that's another couple of girls that I wish I had more time with. I wish we had more stuff going on with them. Deonna, too. I was ready to put the whole deal behind her after seeing her. But, what happened there is this was when she really started to become hot on the independent scene before she got picked up by WWE first and then Impact. But then you just couldn't get dates on her. I mean, I would have, I would have booked her in a sec for every show. No, she's just that good. Sumi, what can you say? I mean, really, as I say, a tremendous story of how someone had, reached a level of success in their home country and then gave it all up, walked away from everything she knew and everything that she had become, accustomed to follow her dream here in the United States, and that dream came true. So I have just a world of respect for her as a human being.
Absolutely. I mean, the courage alone to be able to do that.
Right.
There's something to be said for someone that's willing to bet on themselves and put themselves out there. That's guts. That's total guts.
Absolutely. And she brings a lot to the table. I'm surprised that Shimmer never really used her. I'm also surprised they never used Alexis Nevaeh.
Right.
I don't know. I've known Dave Prazak for a long time, and He just didn't get it with either one of them, which is kind of too bad.
Yeah, tell him to watch some of these matches. He'll be kicking himself.
Well, I wonder if he has watched these matches. I mean, he should have, but you never know. Those are our 2 matches for this week. Next week, we're going to talk about 2 matches that involve British stars. We're going to take a look at Maverick Wild taking on Doug Williams in his second NECW appearance. Doug Williams debuted in America on the second NECW show in Wethersfield, Connecticut. The match that we're going to see took place at Good Time Emporium in 2000, so that's going to be interesting to take a look at. And then we're going to take a look at Johnny Storm versus Jody Fleisch, 2 British high flyers who are still wrestling today. Those were 2 milestone matches in NECW, and we're going to look forward to taking a look at those. I think what we're going to do, we were talking off the air before we started here about dropping some video in, which I hadn't planned on doing this week, but what I'm going to do is drop in the episode from the Best of World Women's Wrestling on Sumi, which you'll see her debut in America, and it'll be kind of interesting. So let's take you to that right now. Sumi Sakai makes her American debut in New England Championship Wrestling. Sumi Sakai on this debut edition, the match that inspired the creation of World Women's Wrestling. It was May 10th, 2002, almost 4 years before the launch of the World Women's Wrestling brand. A match took place in New England Championship Wrestling between Japanese star Sumi Sakai and an upstart talent just coming into her own, Mercedes Martinez. It was billed as a match for the NECW JD North American Women's Championship, a title co-sanctioned by New England Championship Wrestling and the JD promotion in Japan. For Sakai, it was her first match in America.
皆さんこんばんは、日本からやってきた坂井澄江です。私はアメリカでプロレスをするのがずっと夢だったので、今日は NECW で試合ができるのがすごく嬉しいです。メルセデス・マルティネス選手と戦うんですけど、絶対勝ちます。アメリカの皆さん応援してください。よろしくお願いします。
She just said she's really happy to be in the United States because this was her dream to wrestle in the United States, and she's really happy to be part of NECW tonight and wrestling against Mercedes Martinez. It's been her dream come true, and she hopes the American fans would really enjoy her match tonight.
See, tonight is a special night for me, Mercedes Martinez. Why? I have one of the top female wrestlers from Japan coming down. Sumi, it is a privilege for me to be wrestling you tonight. I am one of the top wrestlers here in NECW, and tonight is special. See, there's a woman's title on the line tonight, and I'm not going to take you lightly, and you shouldn't take me for lightly. See, I'm not much on words, but the only thing I can say is I'm going to let my actions speak in the ring.
When we come back, the match that inspired the creation of World Women's Wrestling. referee Sean O'Reilly holding up the championship belt as State Senator Bob Hedlund concludes his remarks. Ring announcer Ron Lemieux with more.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the Bishop Hedlund said, this next bout is a special international event for the NECW North American Women's Championship.
A big night at the Good Time Emporium in Somerville, Massachusetts. Just off a plane from Japan. Sumie Sakai getting set to make her American debut. Sakai literally getting off the plane hours earlier. Photographers at ringside capturing this special moment. The match that inspired the creation of World Women's Wrestling. Few athletes have had this profound effect on the fans of New England Championship Wrestling as that woman right there. Mercedes Martinez. Now calling herself the Latina sensation and living up to that moniker.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce this match, we have a special guest in the audience we'd like to bring out here. She's a former world bodybuilding champion and one of the strongest women in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Melissa Coates.
World bodybuilding champion Melissa Coates being introduced. Down right here. I don't know that Sakai gave her a run for her money or not, but Melissa Coates showing off the goods, so to speak. As we get set for this matchup.
Ladies and gentlemen, this match is 1-4 with a 30-minute time limit. It is for the NECW North American Women's Championship. Introducing first in point to the left. Weighing 160 pounds from Woodbury, Connecticut, Mercedes Martinez! Ladies and gentlemen, her opponent, representing Yoshimoto Ladies Pro Wrestling in Japan, from Tokyo, Japan, at 123 pounds, please welcome, Sumie Sakai!
Sumie Sakai getting set for action. NECW, JT, Yoshimoto Pro Wrestling, North American Women's Championship on the line, and there's the bell. Martinez with height and weight advantage, taking down Sakai. Drop kick sends Sakai to the canvas. Irish whip reversed. Sakai, who had an Olympic level background in judo, taking down the larger Mercedes Martinez. appreciation of the athleticism of both of these women. Sakai gets behind her, takes her to the ropes, tries to take her down and roll her up, but only gets a 1. Martinez misses. Oh, sit out power bomb. Sakai felt that right there. Martinez going to the boots. Martinez brings her out the hard way. Cover right here, and only 2. Very close right there. Referee Sean O'Reilly, a great veteran of the squared circle himself, one half of the legendary O'Reilly brothers. Martinez misses right there. Sakai gets around her. Upstairs now, Martinez has her up, but Sakai manages a head scissors and takes her down, getting a 2 count in the process. Action fast and furious here. Sakai brings her out with a monkey flip. Martinez dazed. Oh, spine buster right there. Martinez with the cover, and only 2. May 10th, 2002. Nearly a decade ago. Martinez sets her up. Sakai behind her. Sakai now. Frankensteiner takes her down. And a cover right here. Only 2. Sakai rather vocal in the ring. Sakai all the way up top. Missile drop kick right on the money. Sakai going upstairs again. Martinez dazed. Big shot right there by Sakai, and a cover only gets her 2. This match transferred from a VHS master tape, which accounts for the video quality you're seeing here. But important moments captured as Sakai goes for the moonsault and doesn't get it. Martinez recovers. Grabs Sakai, has her upstairs. Drops her down, and a cover. 2.5. A close near fall for Mercedes Martinez. Martinez, big forearm, backs up Sakai. Another forearm in the ropes. Sakai reverses. Martinez over the top. Oh, bumps into the referee. Referee Sean O'Reilly hits the deck. Sakai just kind of waiting here. Wait a minute. Melissa Coates at ringside. Coates grabbing the legs of Sakai and pulling her outside. Coates has got to be nearly double the size of Sakai as she rams her head first into the ring post. They're out of here. Jealousy on the part of Melissa Coates. Coates has her up. Slams her into that ring post. Right in the small of the back. The referee comes around. Coates makes a retreat. Sean O'Reilly sends Sakai back into the ring. And now Martinez. Belly to back suplex. Sakai is out of it. Here's a cover. And that's going to do it. A tainted victory, but a victory nonetheless. Let's get the official word.
Ladies and gentlemen, our winner and new NECW North American Women's Champion, Mercedes Martinez.
Martinez, the popular choice, but not a popular victory. Sakai trying to grab the belt away from Sean O'Reilly, and in a display of good sportsmanship, Sakai puts the belt around the waist of Mercedes Martinez. These two would have many other days in the squared circle. As your winner, Mercedes Martinez, the first NECW JD North American Women's Champion. We'll have more, including a postscript, right after this.
NECW Sonic Boom, the official audio podcast, hosted by Al Bassler and Chris Norman. NECW Sonic Boom features all the latest NECW news, match results, exclusive interviews, and analysis. NECW Sonic Boom, available online at NECWWrestling.com. It's the place in cyberspace, the all-new NECW website, online at NECW.tv. The Sakai Martinez title match was covered in Japan's weekly wrestling magazine, Gong. Sakai continued to tour the East Coast in the ensuing months until a rematch took place on June 21st, when Sakai captured the title and took it back to Japan. By the next year, Sakai moved to the United States permanently. She now wrestles occasionally and studies and competes in mixed martial arts. Mercedes Martinez has become one of the top female wrestlers in the world not signed to a major company contract. She's held major titles in numerous organizations and shows no signs of slowing down her stellar career.
See, when Sumi came to NECW, she wrestled Mercedes Martinez. And the deal was that a title was created by the company that she worked for in Japan called JD. And they sent a belt over. And the idea was for Sumi to eventually win this belt and take it back to Japan. So she was the JD NECW North American Women's Champion. That was the title. And Mercedes won the belt on the first night, and then eventually Sumi took it back and went back to Japan. But she made a lot of connections when she was here. She went up to Toronto and wrestled for Ron Hutchinson's Apocalypse Wrestling Federation. And you know, when you come over here from overseas, from Japan, your visa lasts for, I think it's 3 months. You can stay 3 months legally. So what happens is, if she crosses the border and comes back in, the 3 months start all over again. So she would go up to Canada, she'd go down to Mexico, and come back in, and the 3 months would start all over again.
Smart.
She was making connections, and eventually she moved to the U.S. and got married here. And, she and her husband have a business cleaning houses, of all things.
Wow.
Yeah. But once again, Sumi Sakai, a remarkable story, following her dreams and remaking her life after achieving success in Japan. So, Kevin, I guess we got a question this week. Am I correct?
We do. Let me grab that. I feel like I should be playing music or something while I make you guys wait.
The Jeopardy theme or something.
Right.
How apropos.
Too soon. All right. So we have a question here from Brandon Dack, and he is from Clarksfield, Minnesota. And he wants to know, what our favorite match between Mistress Belmont and Alexis Nevaeh in NECW was.
Okay, well, first of all, Brandon, thank you for the question. Brandon Dack is a longtime NECW fan, has followed the company for years. Brandon, of course, lives in Minnesota. He follows us on our YouTube channel, has been following us for years now. We correspond quite a bit. So, Brandon, thank you for the question. My favorite Alexis Belmont match was the one that we showed in the 20th anniversary collection, the cage match. It was such a tremendous match. It was so historic for its time and the effort that both women put in. Because you have to remember, a cage match between two women was something that you never saw. Now it's kind of commonplace with WWE and the Hell in the Cell and all that. But back then, that never took place. You never saw anything like that. You never saw a woman bleed on television. Right. Totally unique for its time. Kevin, what's your answer to that question?
Well, normally I would pick the exact same match, but since you already picked that, I'm going to go with the Iron Maiden.
Okay.
You figure the two of them were in the tournament. They made it to the finals. They were, wrestled the 45-minute. And I'm going to go with that again, just going off of history that it made. Just the fact that they went, I don't know how long their singles matches were, but add that on to the 45 minutes of the Iron Woman contest, and I'm gonna go with that one.
That's a valid. I'm gonna have to rewatch that one. Maybe we'll post that up at some point. You don't have a different answer, Joe, or do you?
I kind of do. So both of those are great answers, and I got to agree. But my favorite one will be the next one.
All right.
When we see them lock up again, that'll be my favorite.
All right. That's a good answer. We were talking a little bit earlier about this being the 21st anniversary of the passing of the late great Boston bad boy Tony Rumble. Tony Rumble taught me a lot of things about promoting wrestling. Tony Rumble promoted his company on a complete shoestring, which is basically how NECW was promoted. Even when there were resources available to us, it was a complete shoestring operation. But he was so street smart and so wise to so many things. He was loved and admired by anybody who knew him. I don't know of anybody that could say bad things about him, except Bob Evans. Bob Evans didn't like Tony Rumble. Bob Evans thought Tony Rumble screwed the boys and so forth, which was not the case. A lot of people will tell you that Tony Rumble was a great guy. You guys didn't know him at all, did you?
I never got to meet him, no.
I got to meet him shortly before he died.
Sheldon, what do you think the landscape of independent wrestling in New England would be right now if he was still around?
Well, there wouldn't have been an NECW because I would have stuck with Tony with whatever he wanted to do. That was just how it was. I mean, I would have followed him to hell and back. It's hard to say. Before he passed away, and a lot of people don't know this, but he was quite worried about where the business was going. He passed away in 1999. So he saw that a lot of the sold shows that were the backbone of the business for him at that time were drying up. This was the thick of the Attitude Era, and the competition between WWF at the time and WCW was pretty thick. So you didn't have a lot of good guys that were available for independent dates. WWF was cutting out what they called third-party bookings, which was your ability to book the undercard guys. They were slowly but surely getting rid of that. So his model of doing business, for the most part, was going to undergo some changes and was pretty well threatened. I think he saw that. There were people that were interested in backing him. The talks never went anywhere because he passed away before that could take place. But it's hard to say. Tony was more of a personality than a technical wrestling guy. And his company really reflected him as a wrestler. He was, say, more of a personality. He had a lot of guys around him who were more gimmicks than anything else. He did have some good workhorse talent, like Knuckles Nelson, Eric Sprasia, some of the younger guys who later became mainstays in NECW, people like Slick Wagner Brown, Jason Rage, who later became Jason Rumble, Latin Fury Luis Ortiz, Alex Arion was another one who was around in that period of time. Tony was good with talent. He was a good judge of talent. He had there was also another guy that wrestled for us. He got injured and had to leave the business a year or two after he passed away. A kid by the name of Jeff Mengels, who was a photographer as a little kid and would come around, and Tony broke him into the business. Jeff was actually pretty good in the ring, more of a junior heavyweight. But no, it's hard to say. I think that Tony knew that the writing was on the wall for his way of doing business. He had a knack for being able to sell shows for good money. He had a lot of stars who were friends, who would do him favors. He was good friends with Kevin Sullivan. So many times on the shows, Kevin Sullivan would be up and pulling guys out to do, enhancement work on WCW. We're going to have Maverick Wild on at some point, and Maverick will tell you the story about him wrestling Jacqueline. Yeah. Rick Fuller got pulled down to WCW through working for Tony. And then we had Jim Cornette. When Jim was living in Connecticut, Jim would come up and do dates for us. So Tony was tapped into a lot of stuff. Tony's shows were the reason that the late Steve Bradley got signed to a developmental deal. That's where Jim saw him, and that's how he got signed. So, Tony was pretty well connected.
Do you think there'd be...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think there'd be as many little pop-up promotions on every street corner?
No, and I'll tell
Tony
you
was
why.
still around?
No.
I'll tell you why. Because Tony was so connected between Cornette and Kevin Sullivan that who would want to run against him? Everybody wanted to work for him and not against him.
Right.
In a lot of ways, NECW was the reason that all these other shows popped up. Because, people looked at me, this guy can do it, well, I can do it too. What we were doing was so easy to imitate. I'm sorry, Kevin, what did you say?
I said thanks for that, Sheldon.
Yeah, right. What can I say? But it's true. We started up, Chaotic started shortly thereafter. They were trying to start up around the same time because they had contacted me. But no, I don't think that a lot of these people would have been around. I just think that it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, when I started in '99, there was very few companies around. And the ones that were, it was just certain areas, because I was more, Fall River, New Bedford, Rhode Island area.
Right.
And then you had up north, north of Boston. And then as the years went on, more and more places would just sort of pop up. And some would fall off, and then 3 more would pop up, and then some would fall off, and then 6 more would pop up. And all of a sudden, everyone's competing to try to get the same guys on the same shows and the same nights. And
right. Well, a lot of things in that period were at play. Number one, of course, was the Attitude Era. That affected the ability of these local companies to get names, because that was drying up. Another thing that was taking place was that you had a lot of guys out there. Kowalski was not really running shows anymore, so that was dried up. You had Richard Byrne that was running his U.S. Wrestling Federation, but that was all sold shows. Costa was pretty much out of business. Jeff Costa, Ringside Wrestling in New Hampshire, he was pretty much done. You had Eugenio, who was running pretty regularly. Mm-hmm. So there was a big hole in the marketplace. Kowalski, by that time, was a senior citizen, and he was slowing down. Eventually, Chaotic either bought him out or was able to recruit him into their camp. And that was kind of, I don't want to say it was the beginning of the end, but the days of the big sold shows were drying up just because of the market. The Attitude Era really killed that off. So all that was left was really the ability to do local shows with local guys. It was thought that what we were doing was pretty innovative, but really it wasn't, because it was just sort of the more obvious thing to do. I got a lot of criticism when I started because I wasn't using names. People say, "Oh, what do you mean there's no names? What do you mean it's just local guys? How's that going to work?" Well, we
no Tony Atlas.
No Tony Atlas. We didn't even use Atlas. We've used Atlas in recent years, but
right.
We back then we didn't use them. We used people like Jason Knight. He had a school. He had people he was turning out. Joel Gertner worked a couple of shows for us. He was fresh off of ECW. But that was it. You almost never saw names on an NECW show. It was very rare that we did that because we wanted people to kind of discover what it was for itself. You have to remember, too, the days of WWF running a show every month in Boston, those were gone. They'd come in 3, maybe 4 times a year, and that was it. So it left a big hole in the marketplace. There wasn't as much wrestling going on. And the other thing, too, is, if you lived out in suburban locations and, a wrestling show shows up there, you might go because it's in your neighborhood. It's inexpensive. Parking's free. It's not a hustle. Not like going to the Garden where it's, $30 to park and tickets are $100 or whatever. I mean, it was a totally different thing. The big challenge for NECW when we started up was selling the whole idea of what the company was. Why isn't it in a big arena? Why are you using all these unknown guys? What was that all about? Selling that idea was a big challenge for us. One that we addressed by doing a lot of PR and getting articles in newspapers and grassroots promoting our business. That took quite a while to do, but and you can see that a lot of other folks followed us in doing it. They didn't quite do it the same way, but they did do it. Mike Sparta was running shows at that time, right? Or was it Freddie that was running?
Yeah. Well, both at the time.
Right.
Freddie he was kind of running it at the time, and then Mike took over at that point.
Now, what was the story with Freddie? Was it because he moved to Florida?
He moved down to Florida at the time, yeah. So he left everything over to Mike. Freddie was still helping Mike while he was down in Florida. He had all the connections. Right. He worked as a referee for Vince Sr. for years, and him and Pat Patterson were real close. So Freddie had the. In fact, when they had the dojo going on with the Funk brother, Dory Funk, Mike and Freddie had access to the dojo, so you were able to see guys like they did. So you were able to see, Kurt Angle, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, all these guys before they ever made it onto television were honing their craft in the armories, right here in Massachusetts.
I remember going to one of those shows in the Quincy Armory and having a very long conversation about British wrestling with William Regal on the fire escape.
Yep, that's when they were trying to package him as the real man, I believe, at that time when he came in. Yep, Dr. Death was there. They brought a lot of guys through that dojo, getting them ready. And again, there's another promotion that's long gone now.
Kevin, do you have any memories of that particular period with those dojo shows? Did you ever go to any of them?
I believe I went to one in Whitman, I want to say, at... I don't remember if it was an Armory or a VFW or one of those. And same type of thing. They had all the, you didn't realize it at the time. I remember being there. Alcohol might have been involved, but I remember holding court about how Earthquake was the best wrestler on the planet. And strangely enough...
Had to be a lot of alcohol involved there. No offense to Earthquake.
Oh, yeah. But oddly enough, there was a large mass wrestler going by the name of Golga on the card that night, not knowing that the man that I was just singing the praises of was behind the mask. So,
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that it had him. It had I want to say Jarrett was on it. Darren Drozdoff was on the card. Crash Holly when he was Aaron O'Grady.
Right.
I believe Mike Hollow was on the card. Thinking back,
Yeah.
so
Kowalski worked a lot with them at the time too.
Yep, he did.
And that's when I ended up. That's when I ended up coming on. It was right at the tail end of the dojos. That's when I worked there, and that's when Danny Davis and Mike Sparta actually. The original plan for me was to make me Dangerous Danny Davis's son.
Oh wow!
But at the time, I said I didn't want to do that. Danny has a son, and that's a spot for him. I would have never felt right taking that spot. I tried to switch it as make me be a nephew or something out of the And as it was, I mean, he ended up training me for the most part anyway. But that was originally supposed to be what they wanted to happen with me when I first came in over there, and that was after I had left Mayhem. Mayhem Wrestling. So
the things we learn in this podcast.
So
right?
You're not his son?
Oh, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
No. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't recall.
Let's have Danny Davis on the show.
We could get Danny on in the heartbeat. He'd be fantastic. He's got a book that's out, too. Yeah, great. We'll call Maury. You are not his son.
All right, so it's time to talk about what we've been watching this week. Did either one of you guys watch Full Gear, the AEW pay-per-view?
I was able to see bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
I wasn't able to watch the whole thing.
All right.
Kevin,
I did not see it.
I saw most of it as well, not the entire show. I would say 3/4 of more of it I had seen.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look at the one that everybody talked about that we were going on and on about was Eddie Kingston, and we were talking about Kingston against Moxley,
right?
And how the hype for the show, for that match, was selling tickets. There was no two ways about it. But I'm not sure if the match, and tell me what your thoughts are, if the match actually lived up to what the hype was. I still think that the Eddie is living up to his part of it. But I think, Eddie hasn't been in the ring. There's some serious ring rust. He did a great job, and maybe that was part of the story they were telling. As he was in there, that he wasn't maybe in ring shape, and because there's a big difference between being in shape and being in ring shape, and without having as many reps under his belt lately, being in there, that could have caused a factor as to what was going on. Plus the match itself with Moxley, I think I was expecting maybe a little more because of the hype behind it and because of the build-up. But, I mean, all in all, the guys worked their asses off, so I give my hats off to them.
For that match alone, I liked it a lot, mainly because it was reminiscent of old ECW.
Okay.
Between the violence, there was just enough weapons in it, and then it wasn't just the typical I'm going to use this because it's there. Like there's a kendo stick, I'm just going to hit you with this 15 times. Each thing that they pulled out was used maliciously, from the thumbtacks. You put the thumbtacks down, okay, someone's going to fall on it. He picked them up and threw them in Moxley's face. After he slammed Moxley in them, he goes outside to the doctor, grabs the rubbing alcohol, and pours. Little things like that, something as simple. We've all felt that, you've had a cut, you've poured alcohol in it. You know what that feels like.
Right.
I thought it told a great story. Did it live up to the hype? I'm kind of on the fence. I think it did. Because it's you. There are times when you paint yourself in a corner. So, like you, Joe, you wanted Eddie to win.
I did.
That would have been the perfect ending for you.
You're right, and maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it didn't live up to
that direction. That I think that's a huge thing because Eddie did talk everybody into buying that pay-per-view.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. I'll tell you what was good though was how he, because I was real interested to see what he was going to do Wednesday night on Dynamite, how he was going to accept that, and the fact of him coming out and basically being heelish, but he came right out and said, I got to live with it. He made me do something I never thought I'd do. He owned up to it, he accepted it, and he moved on. And I went, okay, you know what? And you were saying, Kev, that there was we were talking off camera here, and you were saying something about the promo with him after the match. I think we might have lost Kev. I think he was saying it was in the being the elite.
Right.
There was a scene of him, a shot of him out back, crying and being upset and not even being able to use his phone because his phone was broken. Right. I mean, it's just it's more layers of the story, which you gotta give it to him. Fantastic promo guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get a chance to watch it, unfortunately. I'll tell you what I have been watching. I watched it Tuesday night is United Wrestling Network Primetime Live. They've been doing a tournament for the United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And they got down to the semifinals this week. And the two guys that are going to go head-to-head for the title are Chris Dickinson and an NECW alumnus in Mike Bennett.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
The epic one.
So that should be interesting. A lot of good talent on that Primetime Live show.
Sure.
Made up of some of the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood crew, some of the NWA crew. They're doing some work with Future Stars of Wrestling in Las Vegas. So a lot of guys from that western part of the country that don't always get back east. So it's interesting stuff. Well worth your time. It's a pay-per-view. It's available on the Fight Network, amongst other platforms. So it's about $7 a week to watch. You can buy a 4-week package for $28. So well worth your time. The show's looking better and better. It's done without an audience, but it's really well produced. And so, again, it's worth your time. It's going to be interesting to see what they do there between Dickinson and Mike Bennett.
Yeah, I wish Mike all the luck in the world. He's a great guy. He's been through a lot. I've known Mike since he broke in and first started. Worked with him for years before I ever got to see him in NECW. And when I got to see him when he was in there tagging with Guy Alexander, and in fact, that's one of the ones we got coming up too.
That is correct.
And Guy, I've known Guy since Guy was a referee way back. So the same thing, to see where the two of them went and watch Mike go where he's gone has been fantastic. And I wish him all the best. I wish him luck.
Amen. Kev, anything else?
No, I think we've covered everything for the week. I mean, there's always more, but then what are we going to talk about next time?
Exactly. All right. Well,
but by all means, send your questions in. That way it'll give us more things to talk about.
Right. Send your questions to regenerationnecw@gmail.com. To take a look at the matches that we've talked about this week, check the links in the description below. And for Joe Matarazzo and Kevin Castro, I'm Sheldon Goldberg. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
The Regeneration Podcast is a production of New England Championship Wrestling. To send us questions, comments, or feedback, email us at regenerationnecw@gmail.com.